Dr. Sarah Mitchell had always believed that photographs were more than mere snapshots. They were portals to the past, silent witnesses to forgotten lives. In her 15 years as a digital archivist at the Alabama Historical Society, she had digitized thousands of images, from faded tintypes of Civil War soldiers to grainy Polaroids of civil rights marchers. Each one told a story, but few had ever gripped her like the wedding portrait from 1910. It arrived in a sealed trunk donated by the estate of Clara Robinson, an elderly woman who had passed away in 2018 at the age of 93. The trunk was a time capsule of sorts, filled with yellowed letters, a family Bible inscribed with generations of names, and a small leather journal with brittle pages. But it was the photograph that first caught Sarah's eye. Formal studio portrait of a young black couple surrounded by family, all dressed in their Sunday best. The groom stood tall in a dark suit, his hand gently on his bride's shoulder as she sat in an ornate chair, her white gown cascading around her, a modest bouquet in her lap. The sepia tones evoked an era of stiff collars and long exposures, where smiles were rare and composure was mandatory. At first glance, it was unremarkable. Just another memento of joy amid the hardships of early 20th century life in the South. The family members flanking the couple wore expressions of solemn pride, their postures rigid against the backdrop of heavy drapes and painted scenery typical of the period. Sarah scanned the image at high resolution, noting the embossed mark of the Winston Studio in Birmingham, along with a handwritten date, May 14, 1910. The studio had been one of the few that catered to black families in a segregated city, a place where dignity could be captured on film despite the surrounding indignities. As she cataloged the photo, something nagged at her. It was the bride's face. While the others maintained the expected formality, her expression was off, a forced smile that didn't reach her eyes, tension etched in her jaw and brow. Sarah had honed her ability to read these old images, to discern real emotions beneath the staged veneer. Leaning closer to her monitor, she zoomed in, adjusting the brightness and contrast. The bride's dark eyes held a mix of determination and fear, a silent plea that seemed to transcend time. Curiosity turned to obsession. Sarah increased the magnification further, focusing on the eyes themselves. In the glossy reflection of the cornea, barely visible but undeniable once spotted, was a scene that shouldn't have been there. Modern scanning technology had preserved every pixel, revealing what the original photographer could never have intended. The reflection showed the view from inside the studio, out through its large front windows designed to harness natural light. And there, on the street outside, was something chilling, a prison wagon, the kind used in 1910 Birmingham to transport convicts. Sarah's breath hitched. She enhanced the image, her hands steady despite the racing of her heart. The wagon's iron bars were clear, as were the shadowy figures inside men crammed together, their forms distorted by the curvature of the unmistakable. Chains glinted in the light, shackles linking them in groups. The prisoners' postures spoke of defeat, heads bowed, shoulders slumped. It was a fragmentary glimpse, accidental and unintended, but it transformed the wedding photo from a celebration into a tragedy. Sarah sat back, her mind whirling. She knew enough about Alabama's history to recognize the context. After the Civil War, the abolition of slavery hadn't ended exploitation. It had merely evolved. Southern states, desperate for cheap labor, implemented the convict leasing system. Black men were arrested on trumped-up charges, vagrancy, loitering, lacking work papers, and sentenced to hard labor. Leased to private companies, they toiled in coal mines, lumber camps, and turpentine farms under brutal conditions. Unlike enslaved people who had some economic value to their owners, convicts were expendable. Death rates were staggering, with replacements easily procured through more arrests. Birmingham, with its booming steel and coal industries, was the epicenter. Thousands of black men vanished into this system, their families left in anguish. Sarah zoomed out to the full photo, seeing it anew. The bride wasn't just nervous. She was witnessing horror in real time. The wagon's passage coincided with the photo's exposure, etching terror into her features. Sarah suspected this wasn't a random sighting. The fear in her eyes suggested personal connection. Perhaps a loved one among the chained men. Unable to shake the image, Sarah delved deeper over the next few days. She retrieved the original print from storage, examining it under a magnifying glass. The details held: the wagon's grim cargo, the street's bustle frozen in reflection. Turning to the trunk's other contents, she photographed the family Bible's inscribed page. Names leaped out. Samuel James, born March 3rd, 1888. Clara Rose James, born June 12th, 1892. Clara, the bride, had been 18 at the wedding. Samuel, her brother, 22. The leather journal beckoned next. Its pages, faded and fragile, began in April 1910. The handwriting was elegant, a product of the era's schooling for black children. Mama says I should be happy. The first entry read, Thomas is a good man. Everyone says so. He works steady at the foundry, doesn't drink, goes to church every Sunday. He's kind to me, and I know I'm blessed to have someone who wants to marry me proper, with a real ceremony and photographs and... But how can I think about wedding dresses when Samuel's gone? How can I smile for pictures when I don't know if my brother's alive or dead? Sarah's pulse quickened. Samuel arrested and vanished. She read on, piecing together the tale. Samuel had worked at a hardware store, saving for land to farm. On March 30th, 1910, he was seized for vagrancy, despite his steady job. Clara's words grew agitated. Mr. Peterson from the hardware store went to the jail with Samuel's pay stubs. Showed them he works regular, earns good wages. They didn't care. The judge didn't even look at the papers, just said 30 days. But everyone knows 30 days in the mines might as well be a death sentence. Sarah contacted the Birmingham Public Library's archives, requesting records on convict leasing in Jefferson County for 1910. The files arrived digitally. Sparse lists of names, charges, sentences. But among them was a ledger for Pratt Mines, a notorious coal operation. There, Samuel James, Negro male, age 22, vagrancy, 30 days. Leased to Pratt Consolidated Coal Company on May 12th. 2 days before the wedding, Clara's journal entries from May painted a picture of forced normalcy amid despair. The wedding is in 2 days, she wrote on May 12th. Mama and Daddy say we can't postpone it. Thomas's family has come from Montgomery. The church is ready. The dress is finished. Everyone says life has to go on, that Samuel will be back in 30 days, that he's young and strong and will survive it. But I saw Mrs. Henderson at church Sunday, and when she looked at me, I could see in her eyes that she knows her son went to Pratt Mines for 60 days last year. He came back, but he wasn't the same. He can't take a deep breath without coughing. Can't work anymore. He sits on their porch and stares at nothing. The entry for May 13th was terse. I can't sleep. I keep thinking about Samuel in those mines. In the dark, breathing poison. Tomorrow, I'm supposed to stand in front of everyone and smile and look happy. Mama says I have to be strong, that showing fear or sadness will make things harder for everyone. She says the white folks are always watching, always looking for excuses. So I'll smile. I'll wear my dress and hold my flowers and say my vows. But inside, my heart is breaking. Sarah cross-referenced with other records. The marriage certificate for Clara James and Thomas Harper, dated May 14, 1910. Witnessed by Reverend Joshua Franklin at Bethel Baptist Church. Church notes: small but dignified service. Family present despite recent troubles. Recent troubles. A euphemism for the family's shattering loss. Examining the photo again, Sarah noted subtleties. Clara's mother, hand gripping her shoulder too tightly. Her father, eyes averted toward the window. Thomas, the groom, his face laced with compassion. They all knew. The wagon wasn't coincidence. Its route through black neighborhoods was intentional. A parade of terror to instill fear. Sarah reached out to Dr. Marcus Webb, a historian of early 20th century transportation. Sending the enhanced reflection, she received a swift call. "This is remarkable," he said. "We have few photos of prisoner transports. The system hid them. This accidental capture is invaluable." He detailed the wagons, men chained in groups, crammed for the 12-mile trek to Pratt Mines. May 1910 was peak arrest season, he added. Police ramped up for labor needs. Routes through black areas were deliberate warnings. Survival rates? Marcus paused. 15 to 20% died overall, higher at Pratt 25%. Accidents, disease, exhaustion. Bodies buried unmarked. Clara's post-wedding entries resumed June 6th. I haven't been able to write. Every time I pick up this journal, I think about that day, and I can't breathe. Thomas has been patient. His own cousin was taken 2 years ago and never came back. We live in a world where love and fear exist in the same moment. The photograph, delivered wrapped, confirmed her memory. I can see it in my own eyes. The exact moment the wagon passed. Somewhere in that wagon was Samuel. Thomas's words, "We survive by living, Clara, they want to break us." Every time we choose joy anyway, that's resistance. Sarah felt the weight of generations. This wasn't just history. It was a testament to endurance. But the story was far from over. Samuel's fate loomed, and Clara's voice echoed across time, demanding to be heard. Sarah Mitchell couldn't shake the image of Clara James's eyes. Those twin mirrors reflecting a world of injustice. The wedding photograph had become more than an artifact. It was a lifeline to a buried history, pulling her deeper into the lives of the James family. As the days blurred into late-night research sessions, Sarah pieced together the fragments of Samuel's ordeal, drawing from Clara's journal, archival records, and the stark realities of the convict leasing system. What emerged was a narrative of quiet devastation, where survival was an act of defiance. Clara's journal entries grew more sporadic after the wedding, but their intensity deepened. On June 11th, 1910, the day Samuel's original 30-day sentence should have ended, Clara wrote with trembling script, "Samuel's sentence should end today." Daddy went to the mine office before dawn. They told him Samuel was being held for court costs of $3.20. Daddy had the money. He'd been saving it. But they said it was too late, that Samuel had already been sent back underground. They're adding another 30 days. Daddy came home and wouldn't speak. He just sat on the porch and stared at nothing. Sarah cross-referenced this with the Pratt Mines ledger. Extensions were common, fabricated fines tacked on to keep laborers chained longer. The system's economics were ruthless. Counties profited per prisoner day. Companies squeezed every ounce of work. Samuel, like countless others, became a commodity in this machinery of exploitation. Sarah uncovered letters from Reverend William Colby, the Methodist minister who had railed against the system. In a missive dated June 1910, he described Pratt Mines. Men worked 12 to 14 hours in suffocating heat, chained like beasts. The coal dust invades their lungs, turning breath into agony. Guards wield whips freely. Collapse means beating until you rise or die. The mortality? They laugh it off. We go through them quick. These are God's children. Reduced to fuel for industry's furnace. Clara's next entry, June 18th, offered a glimmer of hope amid the shadows. Thomas heard from someone at the foundry whose brother works at Pratt. The man said he saw Samuel last week. Said he's alive but thin, that he coughs constantly like all the miners do. The dust gets in their lungs and never comes out. Thomas didn't want to tell me, but I made him. I'd rather know the truth, no matter how hard, than wonder. Sarah imagined Clara clinging to these scraps of information. Her new marriage a fragile sanctuary in a storm of uncertainty. Thomas Harper emerged from the pages as a pillar of quiet strength. A foundry worker who had lost his parents young, raised by a grandmother born into slavery. What wisdom had she imparted about enduring a hostile world? By July 1910, Clara's words turned to dread. 60 days now. We heard there was a cave-in at Pratt last week. 3 men died. The newspaper didn't list names, just said Negro convicts, like they weren't people with families waiting for them. I couldn't eat for 2 days, couldn't sleep. Just imagine Samuel trapped under rock and coal, calling for help that would never come. Then Daddy heard from someone that Samuel wasn't in that section. He's alive, but for how much longer? Sarah's research confirmed the incident. Fragmented reports in white-owned newspapers minimized it, while black publications like the Birmingham Reporter hinted at higher tolls, bodies uncounted. Amid this anguish, Clara revealed a personal milestone on July 15th. I think I might be pregnant. I haven't told Thomas yet. I don't know how to feel about it. How do you bring a child into this world? How do you tell them about their uncle? About what happened to him? About what could happen to them? What kind of mother would I be if I brought a baby into a place where their father or uncle or brother could be taken off the street and worked to death for no reason? Sarah paused here, the words resonating across centuries. Clara's dilemma encapsulated the terror of black motherhood in the Jim Crow South joy, tainted by the constant specter of lost Dr. Marcus. Webb's insights added layers to the horror. In follow-up emails, he detailed the psychological warfare of the transports. The routes weren't just efficient. They were performative. Wagons rattled through black communities, chains clanking like a dirge. Families watched loved ones paraded in humiliation, a deterrent etched in collective memory. For Clara, that May 14th glimpse wasn't abstract. It was visceral. Her brother's silhouette among the damned. Sarah's breakthrough came on July 23rd in the Journal. Samuel came home today. Tears blurred her vision as she read. Daddy was at the mine office again. Like every day for 70 days. They told him Samuel was being released just like that. No explanation. Daddy waited 6 hours in the heat, afraid it was a trick. Then the wagon came. There were 12 men in it, and he barely recognized Samuel at first. He's lost maybe 40 pounds. His face is hollow. His eyes don't focus right. When Daddy hugged him, he could feel Samuel's ribs through his shirt. Thomas and Robert James half-carried Samuel home, his legs buckling from weakness. Martha James prepared food, but Samuel's throat, raw from dust, rebelled. Clara tried conversation. He just looked at me for a long time and then said, "You got married," like he'd forgotten or it happened in another lifetime. I told him yes, showed him the photograph. He stared and said, "You were watching the wagon that day." I saw the studio and wondered if you were inside. So he knew. He knew I was there in my wedding dress, watching him being taken away, and there was nothing either of us could do. The entries chronicled Samuel's halting recovery or lack thereof. August 1910, he moved in with his parents. Attempted work at the hardware store, but his lungs betrayed him. Hands trembled from nerve damage, breaths rattled like dry leaves. September, Clara confirmed her pregnancy. Thomas rejoiced, and Samuel smiled faintly at becoming an uncle, a spark of light. November, nightmares plagued him, screams piercing the night. Martha sang childhood lullabies to soothe him. The journal tapered off in December, blank pages stretching like unspoken grief. Tucked within was a clipping from the Birmingham Reporter, January 15th, 1911, Samuel James's obituary. Age 23, he succumbed to the mine's lingering poison pneumoconiosis, the black lung that claimed so many. Survived by family, services at Bethel Baptist. In lieu of flowers, donations to convict lease reform. Sarah wept openly. Samuel had escaped the mines, but not their curse, dying 6 months later. He met his nephew, Clara's son, born March 1911. Per records, but his life was a truncated arc. Dreams of farming dissolved in coal dust. Compiling her findings. Sarah saw patterns. The James family's resilience mirrored thousands. Census data placed them in Smithfield, a black enclave amid segregation. Thomas's grandmother, born enslaved in 1843, died in 1915. Her stories of survival likely fortified the family. Winston's studio ads emphasized dignity and respect, a bulwark against erasure. Contacting the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute, Sarah shared her discoveries. Director Elena Ramirez responded swiftly. This is explosive. The convict system is a dark chapter, often glossed over. Your photo and journal humanize it. Plans coalesced for an exhibition. Reflected truth, one photograph's hidden story. Sarah tracked Claire's descendants. Her son, Robert Harper, named for his grandfather, fathered a line leading to Michael Harper, a history teacher in Atlanta. Michael, stunned by the revelations, recalled Clara as a quiet elder. She died in 1968. I was 10, never spoke of the past, too painful, perhaps. But it explained so much. As preparations mounted, Sarah reflected on the photo's power. It wasn't just evidence of horror. It was testimony to humanity asserted. Clara's gaze, once enigmatic, now radiated unyielding spirit. The story's ripples extended beyond 1910, challenging modern amnesia. Yet. As the exhibition neared, Sarah wondered, would this unveiling heal wounds or reopen them? The past, reflected in a bride's eyes, demanded reckoning. Asterisk, the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute, buzzed with anticipation on the evening of the exhibition's opening. Sarah Mitchell stood near the entrance, her hands clasped tightly to steady the nerves that had built over months of preparation. Reflected truth, one photograph's hidden story, was more than a display. It was a resurrection of voices long silenced, a bridge between 1910 and the present. The gallery walls, painted in soft sepia tones echoing the original photo, guided visitors through a narrative that began with a single image and unfolded into an indictment of forgotten atrocities. At the center loomed an enormous reproduction of the wedding photograph. Clara James Harper seated in eternal poise, her family arrayed around her like sentinels. A magnified inset highlighted the reflection in her eyes, the prison wagon, its bars and chained occupants rendered with digital clarity. Flanking it were protective cases housing Clara's journal, open to poignant entries, and artifacts from the trunk, the family Bible with its inscribed names, faded letters bearing witness to daily struggles. Informational panels provided context, maps tracing the wagon routes through black neighborhoods, statistics on convict leasing's toll thousands arrested, mortality rates soaring to 25% at Pratt Mines, and economic breakdowns, showing how counties and companies profited from human misery. Sarah had woven a Reverend William Colby's letters, their fiery prose decrying the system's barbarity. These men are not criminals, one excerpt read, but victims of a new slavery. Forged in the fires of greed, newspaper clippings from the Birmingham Reporter contrasted with sanitized, white-owned papers, underscoring how history had been selectively recorded. A section on the logistics, informed by Dr. Marcus Webb, detailed the wagon's design. Iron cages on wheels, men shackled in groups of 6. Enduring jolting rides over unpaved roads to mines, where darkness and dust awaited, but the exhibition's heart lay in the personal. Clara's words leaped from the pages, her wedding day resolve, the agony of Samuel's absence, the bittersweet joy of pregnancy amid fear. Visitors lingered over the journal's facsimile, tracing the evolution of her handwriting from elegant to erratic, a visual echo of her turmoil. Sarah had included audio elements, descendants reading entries aloud, their voices infusing the text with contemporary resonance. Thomas Harper's quoted wisdom, "We survive by living. Every time we choose joy anyway, that's resistance," adorned the wall, challenging viewers to see the photo not as victimhood, but as defiance. As guests arrived, historians, locals, descendants. Curious passers-by, Sarah watched reactions unfold. A young black woman, perhaps in her 20s, stood transfixed before the photo, tears tracing her cheeks. "My great-great-grandfather was in the system too," she murmured to her companion. Family stories said he came back broken, coughing blood. "We never had proof like this, just whispers." An older white couple nearby absorbed the panels in silence. The man shook his head. "Born here in 45, and I never learned this in school." "How is it buried so deep?" His wife nodded, gripping his arm. "It's like finding out your hometown had a secret dungeon." Michael Harper, Clara's great-grandson circulated the room, sharing anecdotes. Grandma Clara lived in 1968, he told a cluster of attendees. She was this stoic figure, always baking pies and telling us kids to study hard. Never mentioned Samuel or the mines, maybe to protect us or herself. But this exhibition, it's like hearing her speak for the first time. Michael had contributed family photos, Clara in later years, surrounded by grandchildren, her eyes still holding that mix of sorrow and strength. He pointed to a display of Samuel's dream sketches of the farm he never built. Pieced from journal descriptions, the exhibition extended beyond the James family, listing hundreds of names from Pratt Mines ledgers, anonymous entries like John Doe. Vagrancy, 60 days, each a placeholder for a shattered life. Visitors could add notes in comment books scattered throughout reflections, connections, pledges. One read, "My ancestor was a guard at Pratt. This shamus me, but knowledge is the first step to atonement." Another, "As a teacher, I'll bring my students here." History isn't dates. It's people. Sarah gave a brief talk midway through the evening, her voice steady despite emotion. This started with a photo in a trunk, a reflection no one was meant to see. But Clara's eyes captured truth, a convict leasing system, a bridge from slavery to Jim Crow, exploiting black lives for profit. Samuel James didn't deserve his fate. Neither did thousands others. Yet, in documenting their wedding amid heartbreak, the family asserted their humanity. This exhibition isn't just remembrance. It's a call to confront hidden histories, to ensure such systems never rise again. Applause followed, but Sarah's mind wandered to broader impacts. Media coverage had trickled in local papers, ANPR segments sparking discussions on modern parallels, mass incarceration, racial disparities in sentencing. Scholars requested access for research. Schools booked tours. The Alabama Historical Society planned digitization, making the materials globally accessible. As the night wound down, Sarah lingered by the photo. Clara stared back across 115 years, 1910 to 2025, her expression decoded, not mere fear, but unyielding dignity. Sarah thought of her own life, privileged and distant, yet connected through this thread. "Your story matters," she whispered, echoing Michael's words in the weeks that followed. The exhibition drew crowds, its message rippling outward. Visitors left transformed, carrying Clara's resilience like a talisman. One email from a descendant read, "Thank you for giving my ancestors a voice. In telling their pain, you've honored their strength." Sarah returned to her archiving work, but with renewed purpose. Photographs, she knew, held secrets waiting to be unveiled, reflections of truths society tried to forget. Clara's legacy endured, a testament to survival, building lives amid ruins, choosing hope over despair. In the end, the hidden story wasn't just revealed. It inspired, reminding all that history's eyes are always watching, urging justice forward.